All right, so here's the final piece of the puzzle, and that is taking your data and making a graph out of it. And this is what your graph should look like. And I'm going to walk you through how to get this graph and how graphs should be presented in this class. So every graph in this class needs a title, and the title is always y versus x. So whatever the y variable is versus whatever the x variable is. And then I have axis labels, which gives the quantity and the unit that is being measured on that axis. I also have a trend line, or a line of best fit, and the equation for that trend line. So let me delete this, and then we'll start over again. Okay? So one thing people think about doing when they're trying to make a graph is they think about just select everything. Okay? The only problem with that is that you get some weird behavior in Excel when you select the headers as well. So it's better to just select the data. Okay? And that makes it a lot easier. So we come up here in the ribbon, you come up to insert. And then in the middle, you have these dots. Now, a lot of people I see try to go to the recommended charts, and it's not usually a good idea. Okay? For this class, your graphs should always be XY scatters. And I will tell you if for some crazy reason we're not doing an XY scatter, I will let you know that. Okay? So I click on the one with the little dots, and then the one with the little dots. That's just an XY marked scatter. And that puts this in. Okay? Now, one thing that I think is a good habit to get into is to make sure that your data that are on the y-axis correspond with the values on the y-axis, and your data on the x-axis corresponds with the data on the x-axis. Looks pretty good. Okay? So now we need to start adding things. And the first thing that you'll notice is that I have a chart title. That's called chart title. All I have to do is double click that, and I can do y versus x, distance versus time. Now, you'll notice that I'm not putting units in, and you only really need to include units if it becomes important. Like if I was comparing the distance in miles versus time and the graph of distance in meters versus time, then it would be important to label those. But for now, I have a distance versus time graph. Okay? Now, I got to do all the other things. And all the other things are in one place and one place only. And sometimes, though, they can be a little difficult to find. Okay? So everything that we need is in this tab, Chart Design. But if I click out of my graph, ooh, Chart Design goes away. And that's not good. So I have to click back here. And when I click back on the graph, Chart Design pops up again. Okay? So the only one that we really ever need is Chart Design, and then Add Chart Elements. And when I click on Add Chart Elements, it gives me a lot of other things. So for example, I have axis titles, and I'm going to need a primary horizontal and a primary vertical axis title. So the x-axis is time, and I am going to put the unit in seconds. You don't really need the uncertainty. Then I put axis title primary vertical, and that is going to be distance. Now, Excel will always put the quantity that is on the right, further to the right, on the y-axis. So distance, column B, comes after column A. So that's going to be on the y-axis. The one that comes first is going to be on the x-axis. The same thing would be true if it's flipped. Okay? All right, so I have distance in meters times, I guess I could change that to time. I don't know why there's a times. Time in seconds. And now I need to go add a trend line. Okay. Now we look at this and we might be tempted to do a linear trend line. And that would work, okay? However, the better way to do this is to go to more trend line options. Okay? And when you do more trend line options, it will put the trend line in, which is the line of best fit, generates a line that best fits the data. And then also it brings up this little thing over here. And this little thing over here says format trendline, and then it's got 3 tabs. Okay? And the tab that you really need is the one that looks like a histogram. It's not a bar graph, it's a histogram, but that's okay. And from that, the whole reason that we're using Excel really is these 3 things. All right? I can set the intercept to 0, because there are a lot of times that you're going to want to do that. I can display the equation of the trend line. And then I can also display R squared value. And the R squared value tells you how well your data fit the projected trend line. And since I used a mathematical equation to generate this data, I have a perfect fit. In the lab, you're not going to have a perfect fit. So you might get an R squared that's like 0.9. 0.9 is pretty good, okay? But just get in the habit of including those for now. And there we have a graph that has all the components that you need for this class.